I've been thinking about recently my neighbor of many years who lost his partner of I think about 43 years. She passed away a couple months ago, and it's interesting because he's been. I mean, he's going through a lot emotionally. I can't even imagine that level of grief, and their relationship certainly wasn't perfect from the outside, but I know that they deeply cared about each other. And we never know the details of what anybody's relationship actually is on the inside. But it's been really sweet. Recently he's been telling me how grateful he is for me, how glad he is that I'm here, that he loves me. And that would be possibly really weird if his partner hadn't just passed away, because when that happens, people tend to be sort of emotionally raw and maybe a little bit more open than they otherwise would be. So, grief can really, open our hearts and open us up, and just like everything feels so much more and bigger and more emotional. And he might be experiencing that, but there could also be an element of those are things that he wished he would have told her more. In either way, it's okay. But yeah, it would, I think, feel kind of weird if, um, if she was alive and well. Because you don't normally say those things to your neighbors. I mean, maybe we should to our friends and neighbors more, but usually it's not like that with a neighbor. But I feel very touched for him to open up like that, and it's a depth of grief too that he's showing. And as a neighbor or even a friend or a parent or a spouse or a child or a friend, we can't really fix the grief of anybody else, but we can be there and be present and let them express their feelings. And sometimes that's the best thing that we can do. A lot of times people who haven't gone through loss themselves really don't know what to do when a friend loses a loved one. And sometimes they just won't do anything or reach out at all. But the most powerful thing, really, that you can do is just say, "Hey, I'm here. I'm sorry you're going through this. Is there anything you need or anything I can do?" And sometimes it's just listening. And sometimes actually just the act of reaching out lets them know, somebody's there thinking about me. And it makes it just a little bit easier. And when we do lose somebody, it changes our perspective. I know for me, having lost a lot of family members, it really emphasizes the fragility of life and the beautifulness of life, and how none of us know how long we or our loved ones have, and like, let's make the most of it on so many different levels. But having lost my father at a young age, it makes me extremely grateful for my mom and the relationship we have. We have a very good relationship, but like any other thing, there are times when you get a little irritated with each other, or um, aren't really on the same page. But like, having knowing what it's like to lose a family member, and then just being grateful for her, makes me patient with things that I wouldn't otherwise be patient with. And just really grateful. I think when I was younger, we didn't really say "I love you" a lot, and now we do after almost every conversation. not as a pressure thing, and sometimes it doesn't happen, but it is nice both for us and the person receiving it to tell, people that they're important to us, that we care about them, whether it's I love you or something as simple as I'm really glad we got to do this, or, I really enjoy the time we spend together, or, I'm so grateful you're my brother, whatever it is. Because once they're gone, we're sort of just left with maybe a little bit of guilt and regret over things we didn't say. Obviously, whatever positive memories we have of them too, but just saying it in real life while they're still here can be meaningful. And it's not like we can't have relationships with our loved ones once they've passed and moved on. I mean, I've had experiences myself, and I've had so many people tell me about having experiences where, their mom came to them and it comes to them in their dreams, or, another friend who's not very into the spiritual energy woo woo side of things, has had communications with their mom after she passed. So, things can be mystical and spiritual, and there might still be able to be a relationship there of sorts, or, depending on what you believe, or at least a relationship in our hearts, and of the memory with them, but taking advantage of the time that we do have with our loved ones, so that we don't regret things that we didn't say or things that we didn't do, time that we didn't spend with them. But my neighbor's super sweet, and I'm glad that I can be there. There is a heaviness to people's grief, but also a pureness, and just being there, and letting them have their experience can be very helpful. These flowers are super pretty. Yeah, I love walking and just seeing plants. It's so relaxing. The rosemary smells good, and of course, things like essential oils and plants can help with our stress and keep our nervous system calm, whether we're processing grief, or just dealing with modern life. But I don't think a lot of people open up to me about having lost a loved one or how they feel about death. I've never heard anybody say they regretted, like, telling their loved ones they loved them too much before they passed. And we certainly don't need to be over the top about it, but just if somebody's meaningful to you and you've never said it, you can say it in your own words. It doesn't even have to be I love you. It could be you mean so much to me. I'm so glad you're my mom. I'm so grateful you're my brother. Or even like, I lucked out and got a pretty cool sister. It can be playful, it can be your own words. These roses are really beautiful too. And there's lots of bees around them. So it's nice to see that, whatever happens, nature sort of goes on, life goes on. And, there are people here that care about you.